Caroline had always believed in the fairy tale of love, in the promise that marriage would bring her safety, happiness, and the joy of a growing family. Expecting twins, she had imagined a life filled with laughter, baby coos, and quiet moments with Ethan. To the outside world, their life appeared flawless. Their home was spacious and tastefully decorated, a perfect reflection of Ethan's wealth and Caroline's keen sense of style. Friends and family often commented on their seeming perfection, how Ethan's charm and success were complemented by Caroline's warmth and elegance. No one would have suspected the tension that simmered beneath the surface. Caroline devoted herself to maintaining the image of a happy family, managing her health, prenatal appointments, and household while keeping her own worries in check. Ethan, admired publicly for his business acumen and charisma, played the part of the perfect husband, smiling for cameras, greeting guests warmly, and always making it appear that he cherished Caroline and the twins. But behind the closed doors of their home, Ethan's true nature showed. Small, controlling behaviors began to creep in, subtle criticisms, dismissive remarks, and moments of cold detachment that Caroline initially brushed off. She loved him, trusted him, and feared the consequences of challenging him. Deep down, Caroline sensed cracks forming in their seemingly flawless relationship, but she chose to ignore them, focusing instead on her babies in the hope that Ethan's love would prevail over his controlling tendencies. The tension was there, quiet but persistent, like a shadow over the bright picture they projected. She remained devoted to him, trying to find reasons for his behavior, convincing herself that perhaps the stress of his career was the cause, and that he would change once the twins arrived. Caroline's growing unease intensified as she began noticing subtle signs of Ethan's hidden life. Late nights at the office, sudden phone calls he quickly hushed, and distant, distracted behavior suggested he was withholding something significant. She caught glimpses of text messages he deleted too quickly, words that seemed secretive, almost urgent, and faces of women who appeared in his contacts that Caroline had never met. It was a growing puzzle, one she could not yet fully piece together, but her maternal instinct and intuition warned her that something was amiss. Unbeknownst to her, Ethan was involved in a secret affair with Lydia, a young woman from his office who had been strategically entering his life, aware of his vulnerabilities and ambitions. Lydia's presence slowly intruded upon the sanctuary Caroline had built, yet Ethan was careful to conceal the truth. As the days passed, the affair deepened, and Ethan began prioritizing Lydia over Caroline in ways subtle yet unmistakable. He started sneaking away to meet her, showing less attention to Caroline's needs, dismissing her concerns, and creating emotional distance. Caroline noticed the change, though she couldn't yet name it, and began feeling a gnawing sense of betrayal. The love she had poured into their marriage now seemed to waver in Ethan's eyes. The neglect, the secretive behavior, and the emotional absence all combined to sow seeds of turmoil and anxiety in Caroline's heart. She felt increasingly isolated and vulnerable, her trust being chipped away by the very man she had devoted herself to completely. Caroline's twin pregnancy was far more challenging than she had anticipated. Carrying two babies placed a constant strain on her body, and the fatigue was overwhelming. Every movement seemed to take double the effort, and simple tasks left her exhausted. Nights were restless, filled with discomfort, aches, and constant worry about the baby's well-being. Even walking across the living room made her breathless, her body protesting the growing life inside her. She experienced frequent sharp pains, swelling, and dizziness, all signs that her pregnancy required careful attention and rest. She would often mention her discomfort to Ethan, hoping for understanding, for a moment of empathy, or simply reassurance. But Ethan's response was consistently dismissive. He focused on appearances, insisting she look poised and composed, reminding her of social events or family gatherings. "You need to be presentable for the twins," he would say, brushing aside her complaints and pain. Caroline felt invisible in those moments, her emotional and physical needs minimized. Even her requests for additional medical checkups were met with hesitation or subtle discouragement, as if she were exaggerating. The emotional stress built gradually, forming a heavy weight in her chest. Every day, Caroline grew more anxious and cautious, afraid that voicing her discomfort or asking for extra care would provoke Ethan's temper or criticism. She felt isolated, navigating her high-risk pregnancy with limited support, her trust in her husband eroding as she faced each challenge alone. The combination of physical strain, emotional neglect, and constant tension made her wonder if she could endure until the twins arrived. Her love for her unborn children was her anchor, giving her strength to endure, but the sense of vulnerability and fear lingered in every moment, and she felt trapped between protecting herself, preserving the marriage, and safeguarding her baby's future. Caroline's intuition began to raise alarms. She noticed subtle, troubling shifts in Ethan's behavior. His impatience, once occasional, had become constant. Small inconveniences seemed to trigger sharp irritation. He was increasingly controlling, monitoring not only her appointments but also her movements around the house. He questioned her repeatedly about where she was going, who she spoke with, and when she returned from routine errands. More alarming were the small surveillance measures she began to notice: cameras in corners of the living room, the hallway, and even near the nursery. Though he claimed they were for security, Caroline sensed their purpose was more sinister: to monitor, to control, to intimidate. Each glance of a camera felt like a reminder that her privacy was shrinking, that her independence was being stripped away. Even interactions with hospital staff were scrutinized. He insisted on accompanying her everywhere, making her appointments uncomfortable, creating an invisible prison under the guise of care. The combination of his irritability and obsession with controlling hospital visits left Caroline on edge. She became cautious with every word, fearful that any misstep could provoke another display of anger or punishment. The house, once her sanctuary, now felt like a cage, and her anxiety grew as she realized the lengths to which Ethan would go to assert dominance. Every passing day made it clear, the charming man the world saw was only a mask, and Caroline was beginning to see the dangerous truth lurking beneath it. The day Caroline went into labor arrived with a mixture of fear, anticipation, and exhaustion. Her body was tense, every contraction a sharp reminder of the struggle she had endured carrying twins. Nurses and doctors guided her through the initial stages, monitoring both her health and the baby's vitals. Caroline's heart pounded as she gripped the handrails of the hospital bed, trying to stay calm and focused. Ethan appeared briefly, offering a distracted smile and a few words of encouragement, but it was clear his mind was elsewhere. He checked his phone constantly, answering calls and replying to messages, his attention divided. Caroline tried to ignore the distance in his gaze, focusing instead on the strength she needed to bring her twins safely into the world. Pain surged through her with every contraction, and tears welled in her eyes. She whispered quietly to the babies, willing them to stay strong, to hold on. The medical staff guided her through each stage of labor with professionalism and empathy, but the absence of true emotional support from her husband left her feeling vulnerable and alone. Caroline drew on her inner reserves, focusing on breathing, visualization, and determination. Every moment of doubt, every pang of fear, was met with a fierce resolve to protect her babies. Despite the chaos in her mind, she could sense the life growing inside her, the tiny movements of the twins urging her to persevere. The hospital environment, though efficient, felt cold without Ethan's presence, his distraction highlighting the reality of her situation. She relied on the nurses, doctors, and her own resilience to navigate the terrifying yet miraculous process. Each contraction, each push, brought her closer to the moment when she would finally hold her children in her arms, a moment that had seemed distant but now was within reach. Caroline's fear never subsided completely, but it was tempered by the overwhelming determination to survive and protect her babies, no matter the cost. As labor intensified, Caroline sensed Ethan's unease and distraction growing. After a brief appearance at the hospital, he quietly informed her he had other commitments and would return later. The words, though soft, cut deep. Caroline's trust faltered, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear, frustration, and betrayal. She was left in the sterile hospital room, monitors beeping steadily, contractions coming faster, and no support from the man who had promised to be by her side. Nurses tried to reassure her, offering guidance and comfort, but the absence of her husband's presence created a hollow ache in her chest. Ethan's mind, Caroline realized, was elsewhere entirely. He was with Lydia, prioritizing the affair over the life-and-death struggle she faced. The injustice of his abandonment weighed heavily on her, magnifying the pain of each contraction. Caroline fought back tears, trying to summon courage for her babies. She felt fear and anger intertwining, the betrayal burning as intensely as the physical pain. Her mind raced with questions. Why had he left? Why would he abandon the two lives he had helped create in the most critical moments? Yet, amidst the fear and frustration, a stronger force emerged, her maternal instinct. Caroline clung to the knowledge that she alone had the power to protect her twins. She steeled herself, determined to endure every pang of pain, every wave of fear, until the babies were safely in her arms. Each breath she drew, each push she summoned, was fueled by survival and love. The only constants she could rely on as Ethan's absence loomed over the room like a shadow, reminding her of both his betrayal and her own strength. As labor progressed, Caroline's condition took a sudden and terrifying turn. She began to feel dizzy and faint, her body weakening with every contraction. Nurses noticed a rapid drop in her blood pressure and the alarming signs of extreme blood loss. Her face turned pale, sweat beading along her forehead, and her heart rate spiked irregularly. Panic spread among the medical staff as they immediately called for the obstetric emergency team. Doctors rushed into the room, assessing her vitals with urgency, while monitoring the twins to ensure they were not in danger. Caroline struggled to remain conscious, her vision blurring as fear gripped her heart. The staff worked frantically to stabilize her, inserting 4 lines, administering emergency medications, and preparing for immediate interventions. Her condition deteriorated further, and for a brief, terrifying moment, the attending physician declared that she was brain dead temporarily due to complications and extreme trauma during labor. Caroline's family, previously waiting outside, were summoned urgently, fear etched on every face. Nurses and doctors coordinated seamlessly, their focus unwavering, working against time to restore life and health. Amidst the chaos, Caroline clung to any awareness she could muster, whispering quietly for the twins, willing them to remain safe. Every decision made by the staff was critical, balancing her life and the fragile lives of her unborn children. The hospital environment, once routine and calm, became a whirlwind of monitored alarms, hurried footsteps, and tense voices. Despite the gravity of the situation, the team's professionalism and swift action prevented a tragedy, slowly bringing Caroline back from the brink. The ordeal left her physically weak but alive, her body still bearing the intense strain of childbirth and medical emergency. Through it all, Caroline's resilience, combined with the expert intervention of the staff, became the defining factor in her survival and the survival of her twins, though the shadow of danger and betrayal by Ethan lingered in her consciousness. As hospital staff worked to stabilize Caroline, the hospital's security cameras captured every crucial moment leading up to the emergency. The footage revealed Ethan's deliberate neglect, leaving the hospital without concern, walking past urgent staff warnings, and failing to check on Caroline while she struggled with complications. The cameras clearly recorded his hurried departure, highlighting a choice driven by selfishness rather than care. Simultaneously, the footage documented the swift response of the nurses and medical team, capturing how they intervened just in time to prevent irreversible harm. Every procedure, from administering emergency medications to stabilizing Caroline's vitals, was recorded, showing her life being saved against staggering odds. This visual evidence was critical. It demonstrated not only Ethan's abandonment but also the professionalism and heroism of the medical staff who ensured both Caroline and her twins survived. The footage would later become an undeniable testament to the truth, countering any lies or manipulation Ethan might attempt to spread. It showed that Caroline was never beyond help, that despite Ethan's absence, her survival was not only possible but realized through the dedication and skill of the hospital team. The cameras captured the stark contrast between Ethan's negligence and the life-saving actions of others, cementing the reality of the events. Every frame of the recording told a story of betrayal, danger, and ultimately, resilience. It was clear, the truth could not be hidden. Ethan's disregard for Caroline's condition was plain, and the visual evidence would serve as the cornerstone for legal accountability and eventual justice for Caroline and her twins. Caroline's family rushed to the hospital the moment they received the urgent call. Shock and fear washed over them as they entered the labor and delivery wing, witnessing the aftermath of her medical emergency. Natalie, Caroline's sister, grasped her hands tightly, her face pale with alarm, while Julian, her brother-in-law, clenched his jaw, eyes scanning every detail with controlled fury. The sight of Caroline, weak and surrounded by monitors and 4 lines, filled them with an overwhelming sense of urgency and disbelief. They demanded immediate answers from the medical staff, pressing for updates on Caroline's condition and the twins' safety. As they absorbed the gravity of the situation, their concern quickly transformed into anger. They turned to Ethan, who lingered awkwardly nearby, and confronted him directly. "How could you leave her like this?" Natalie demanded, her voice shaking with rage. Julian stepped forward, insisting that the hospital implement all necessary protective measures to ensure Caroline and her twins remain safe. The family made it clear that Ethan's selfish actions would not be tolerated, emphasizing that legal authorities would be involved if required. Nurses and doctors, already attentive, coordinated with the family to provide updates and outline the ongoing care plan. Caroline's family stayed by her side, offering comfort and advocating for her rights, ensuring that no further negligence could occur. Their presence created a protective bubble, shielding Caroline from further harm and reinforcing the urgent message: her safety and that of her babies were the top priority, and any attempt to undermine it would face consequences. The mixture of fear, shock, and righteous anger underscored the family's unwavering commitment to justice and care. Once Caroline's immediate medical crisis stabilized, her family took swift action to ensure accountability. Authorities were contacted, and Ethan's blatant neglect and abandonment were formally documented. Hospital records, detailing the timeline of the labor, medical interventions, and Caroline's critical condition, were secured as evidence. Security camera footage capturing Ethan leaving during the most dangerous moments of labor was carefully preserved, providing an unassailable visual record of his actions. Legal experts specializing in domestic abuse and medical neglect were consulted, beginning the compilation of a strong case that could hold Ethan responsible for endangering his pregnant wife and newborn twins. Witness statements from nurses, doctors, and hospital staff who had observed both Caroline's condition and Ethan's behavior were collected, ensuring multiple corroborating accounts reinforced the evidence. The family emphasized the severity of the attempted harm, framing it not as simple negligence but as a deliberate choice to prioritize personal desires over the lives of his wife and children. Each detail of the timeline, from Ethan's departure to the staff's life-saving interventions, was catalogued meticulously. Lawyers strategized on the legal avenues available, considering both criminal and civil actions to secure justice for Caroline and her twins. The process also involved notifying protective services to ensure Caroline's safety during ongoing legal proceedings. Every document, every recorded moment, became a piece of a larger story, one that exposed betrayal, neglect, and the potential for serious consequences. The family's resolve was clear: justice would be pursued relentlessly, and Ethan would be held accountable for placing his pregnant wife and newborns in mortal danger. Their commitment laid the foundation for both immediate protection and long-term legal action, signaling the beginning of a fight for truth and reparation. After the life-threatening labor and medical emergency, Caroline's recovery was slow but steady, guided by the unwavering care of doctors and nurses. Her body bore the marks of trauma, with physical weakness lingering, yet each day brought incremental improvement. Pain management, physical therapy, and constant monitoring were crucial in restoring her strength, while the presence of skilled medical staff ensured that both she and her twins were safe. Emotionally, Caroline faced waves of fear, anger, and betrayal, processing not only the danger she had endured but also the knowledge that her husband had prioritized his mistress over her life and the lives of their newborns. Family members, especially Natalie and Julian, remained close, offering unwavering support and reassurance. Their constant presence helped Caroline regain a sense of security and trust in her immediate environment. She began to bond more deeply with her twins, holding them gently, marveling at their resilience and the miracle of their survival. Despite the trauma, Caroline's determination grew stronger. She refused to allow fear or betrayal to dominate her life. She educated herself about postpartum recovery, infant care, and personal safety, determined to create a stable and protective environment for her children. Her nights, though occasionally restless, became more peaceful as she realized she was no longer alone in the struggle. Her family, the hospital staff, and the law were aligned in her defense. Every small milestone, feeding her babies, taking steps independently, managing pain, reinforced her confidence and resilience. Caroline's inner strength, honed by survival, became a driving force. She began planning for her long-term safety, the twins' well-being, and eventual legal recourse. Each day of recovery was a testament to human resilience, professional skill, and the power of love and support, transforming fear into determination and preparing Caroline for the next chapter, confronting the truth and holding Ethan accountable. With Caroline stabilized, attention shifted to holding Ethan accountable. Family members, hospital authorities, and legal representatives confronted him regarding his actions during the labor crisis. Ethan attempted to manipulate perceptions, insisting that he had acted out of concern and care, attempting to present himself as a worried husband. However, the security footage, medical reports, and multiple eyewitness accounts directly contradicted his claims. Each attempt to distort the narrative was dismantled by irrefutable evidence. Furthermore, investigations revealed Lydia's influence, showing that she had encouraged Ethan's neglect and prioritized her own interests over Caroline's safety. This additional revelation deepened his culpability, illustrating a deliberate pattern of selfish and dangerous choices. Ethan's demeanor shifted from defensive to visibly panicked as he realized that manipulation and charm could no longer shield him. Legal authorities emphasized the severity of the offense, considering potential charges of medical neglect, endangerment of a pregnant woman, and attempted harm to infants. The family remained resolute, insisting that Caroline and the twins receive full protection while pursuing justice. Hospital administrators and legal experts coordinated to ensure that Ethan's access to Caroline and the children was strictly controlled, preventing further risk. The confrontation made clear that charm and wealth could not erase the undeniable truth captured by cameras and documented by medical professionals. Ethan faced mounting scrutiny, both public and legal, while Caroline's position strengthened with every documented fact supporting her experience. The combined evidence left him with no plausible defense, and his actions could no longer be minimized or excused. This confrontation marked the beginning of formal accountability, setting the stage for justice and establishing a protective framework for Caroline and her twins. Once Caroline's story reached the public domain, the reaction was immediate and intense. Headlines blared accusations of neglect and betrayal, emphasizing Ethan's abandonment of his pregnant wife during a life-threatening labor. News outlets analyzed the hospital footage, highlighting the stark contrast between the helpless Caroline and the absent husband. Social media amplified the story, with viewers expressing shock, outrage, and disbelief at Ethan's actions. Public opinion quickly turned against him, and people debated the moral and legal implications of leaving a woman and newborns in such a critical state. Sponsors and business associates began distancing themselves, unwilling to be associated with a man whose conduct was now widely condemned. Investors reconsidered ongoing deals, and colleagues questioned their professional alignment with him. The story not only exposed personal betrayal but also highlighted societal concerns regarding spousal neglect and the responsibilities of parents in critical moments. Media outlets interviewed hospital staff, family members, and legal experts, creating a comprehensive narrative that reinforced the gravity of Ethan's behavior. Public outrage became a powerful force, intensifying the scrutiny on him. The viral spread of the footage ensured that attempts to manipulate the story or hide the truth would fail. Caroline's courage in surviving the ordeal, combined with the irrefutable evidence captured on camera, made it impossible for Ethan to control the narrative. Each new report added pressure on him, signaling that accountability was inevitable. The exposure brought both justice and awareness, showing the dangers of selfish neglect and the critical importance of vigilance in protecting vulnerable individuals. Caroline, though weary, watched as her story became a catalyst for public discussion, empowering other victims to speak up and seek protection. The courtroom became the stage for confronting Ethan's actions, a place where truth, evidence, and justice intersected. Caroline testified with remarkable courage, recounting every moment of neglect, fear, and danger she endured during labor and immediately afterward. Her voice, though trembling at times, carried authority and conviction, making clear the severity of Ethan's abandonment. Doctors, nurses, and hospital staff took the stand, providing detailed accounts of Caroline's critical condition, the emergency interventions, and the life-saving measures that preserved her and the twins' health. The security footage was presented as key evidence, showing Ethan's deliberate departure and indifference while Caroline faced life-threatening complications. The visuals left the courtroom in stunned silence, corroborating her testimony and leaving no room for doubt. Legal experts highlighted the pattern of neglect, the risk to both mother and children, and the calculated nature of Ethan's actions. The judge, reviewing all the testimony and evidence, condemned Ethan's conduct as monstrous, selfish, and inexcusable, emphasizing the severe breach of trust and parental duty. The trial also revealed the mistress Lydia's influence, further solidifying the case against him. Ethan's attempts to manipulate perceptions and downplay his actions were systematically dismantled, leaving him exposed to the full weight of legal consequences. Caroline's resilience and detailed account strengthened the case, ensuring that justice would be served. The courtroom drama was not merely about punishment, it was about recognizing the courage it took for Caroline to survive, speak out, and protect her twins. Every witness, every piece of evidence, and every legal argument worked in unison to hold Ethan accountable. By the end of the proceedings, it was evident that the law, combined with bravery and documentation, had created an unshakable narrative. Neglect and betrayal, no matter the social or financial standing, would not go unpunished. Caroline's victory was both personal and symbolic, reinforcing the message that truth and justice prevail. The courtroom ruling brought both relief and a sense of vindication for Caroline. Ethan was sentenced for neglect and endangering his pregnant wife and newborn twins, facing consequences proportional to the severity of his actions. The judge emphasized that leaving a woman in a critical medical condition, while prioritizing personal indulgence in an affair, constituted a gross violation of responsibility and trust. In addition to criminal penalties, Caroline was granted full custody of the twins, ensuring that Ethan could no longer exert control or pose any risk to their safety. Protective orders were immediately enacted, limiting his ability to contact or approach Caroline and the children. The legal system reinforced that his wealth, status, or charm could not shield him from accountability. Lawyers detailed the documented neglect, the hospital's emergency interventions, and the undeniable security footage as the foundation for the judgment. Caroline's testimony was highlighted as a courageous account of survival and maternal strength, demonstrating her resilience in the face of life-threatening betrayal. Family support and legal advocacy played a pivotal role, underscoring that justice was not only achieved but meticulously structured to protect the vulnerable. The ruling also served as a cautionary precedent. Intentional neglect, especially in the context of pregnancy and newborn care, would be met with rigorous legal scrutiny. Caroline's victory was multifaceted. She reclaimed her life, secured her children's future, and reaffirmed the principle that abuse and abandonment would not go unpunished. With the courtroom drama concluded, she could finally focus on healing, raising her twins, and creating a stable environment free from fear, while knowing the law firmly protected them from further harm. With legal protections in place and Ethan held accountable, Caroline could finally focus on recovery and rebuilding her life. She moved into a secure, modest home, creating a safe and nurturing environment for herself and her twins. Every corner of the house was filled with warmth, comfort, and love, a stark contrast to the fear and betrayal she had previously endured. Family members, especially Natalie and Julian, remained deeply involved, providing guidance, support, and companionship. Caroline focused on the daily needs of her children, ensuring that each feeding, nap, and milestone was attended to with care and attention. Slowly, her physical strength returned, and her emotional resilience grew stronger. The trauma of labor, abandonment, and medical emergency gradually gave way to confidence in her ability to protect and nurture her children. She also dedicated time to professional counseling and support groups, processing the betrayal and fear she had experienced while finding solidarity among other survivors of abuse and neglect. Caroline's experience became a source of empowerment, motivating her to advocate for others in similar situations and raise awareness about the dangers of neglect during pregnancy. Each day spent with her twins reinforced the value of family, love, and vigilance. The bond she formed with them was a testament to endurance, survival, and maternal devotion. Caroline's life, once shadowed by betrayal and fear, now flourished with hope, safety, and joy. Through careful planning, unwavering family support, and personal determination, she transformed a period of near tragedy into a foundation for a thriving, secure, and loving future, ensuring that her children would grow up in an environment defined by care, protection, and resilience. After regaining stability and ensuring the safety of her twins, Caroline felt a strong drive to transform her personal ordeal into a force for good. She began actively advocating for pregnant women, domestic abuse survivors, and maternal health awareness, using her story as a beacon of hope and resilience. Through speaking engagements, social media campaigns, and collaborations with nonprofit organizations, she highlighted the dangers of neglect during pregnancy and the importance of recognizing early warning signs of abuse. Caroline emphasized that survival is possible when victims seek help and lean on support systems, whether family, friends, medical professionals, or law enforcement. Her first-hand experience brought authenticity and urgency to her advocacy, resonating with countless women who faced similar situations. She also worked closely with hospitals and legal experts to promote policies ensuring better protection for pregnant women, including stricter monitoring of high-risk situations and mandatory reporting of suspected neglect or abuse. Caroline's story became widely shared, inspiring others to come forward, seek protection, and reclaim their lives from harmful relationships. Beyond advocacy, she reflected on her journey, the terror, betrayal, and near-tragic events, and transformed those memories into lessons on resilience, empowerment, and justice. By confronting her pain publicly, she not only helped others but reinforced her own healing, turning fear and trauma into purpose. Caroline's commitment to advocacy became a defining chapter in her life, demonstrating that personal survival can extend beyond oneself, creating a lasting impact on the community and ensuring that other women can navigate similar dangers with knowledge, support, and courage. Caroline's life, once threatened by betrayal and medical crisis, had transformed into one defined by strength, security, and hope. She reflected on her journey, acknowledging the fear, pain, and near loss she endured, but also recognizing the courage and resilience that carried her through. Ethan, once a controlling and negligent husband, had completely faded from her life, his presence replaced by safety, love, and protection. The twins thrived in a nurturing environment, their laughter and milestones symbolizing both recovery and new beginnings. Caroline's family remained a steadfast source of support, reinforcing the sense of stability she had fought to create. Professionally and personally, she continued her advocacy, educating others about domestic neglect, maternal health, and the importance of protective interventions. Her story became a symbol of hope, showing that even in moments of near tragedy, truth, resilience, and justice could triumph. She took pride in surviving a situation that could have ended in irreversible loss, and in using her experience to ensure that others would not face the same dangers alone. Caroline's reflections underscored a profound lesson: adversity, while painful, can become the foundation for strength, purpose, and empowerment. Each day spent with her twins, guiding them with love and safety, reinforced her renewed sense of self and her unwavering commitment to justice and advocacy. Her life had evolved from one overshadowed by fear to one illuminated by courage, illustrating the transformative power of resilience, family, and truth. Caroline emerged not only as a survivor but as a role model, a living testament that even the darkest moments can lead to restoration, protection, and a future filled with hope, safety, and unwavering strength.